In human history, there are names remembered by the entire world, even though no one can confirm that they truly existed. King Arthur is one of them. He is described as the greatest king of ancient Britain, the man who unified the kingdom during a time of chaos, led the Knights of the Round Table, and possessed the legendary sword Excalibur. Yet behind these heroic tales lies a question that has challenged historians for centuries. Was King Arthur a real historical figure, or merely a product of legend and human imagination? What makes King Arthur truly remarkable is the uncertainty surrounding him. There is no portrait, no tomb, and no official historical record from the Roman era that directly mentions this king. This absence is striking, given that the Romans were known for carefully documenting important events in Britain. As a result, many believe that Arthur never existed, or if he did, he may have been only a local leader whose influence was not significant enough to be recorded at the time. It was not until the 9th century that the name Arthur began to appear in the work Historia Brittonum. In this text, Arthur is not described as a king, but as a military leader who commanded Celtic forces against Saxon invasions. Several centuries later, Annales Cambriae also mentions Arthur and the final battle in which he was said to have died. However, these accounts were written hundreds of years after the period in which Arthur was believed to have lived, raising serious doubts about their reliability. Many scholars suggest that Arthur may have been a composite figure, formed from the stories of multiple heroic warriors that were passed down orally and gradually transformed into myth. Although the existence of King Arthur remains disputed, the sword Excalibur has become an inseparable symbol of his legend. According to tradition, Excalibur was a sword that only the rightful king could possess. In one famous version, Arthur pulled the sword from a stone, a feat no one else could achieve. In another version, Excalibur was given to Arthur by the Lady of the Lake, a supernatural figure. Regardless of its origin, Excalibur represents far more than an ordinary weapon. It symbolizes legitimate authority and the belief that a true leader is chosen not only by strength but also by destiny and moral virtue. Along with Excalibur, Camelot, the capital of King Arthur, is also one of the greatest mysteries of this legend. Camelot is described as the center of an ideal kingdom, where the Knights of the Round Table gathered to discuss justice, honor, and the protection of the weak. Yet, like Arthur himself, Camelot has never been precisely identified on the map. Many theories suggest that Camelot may have been located at Tintagel, Cadbury Castle, or Winchester. But none of these sites provide sufficient archaeological evidence to confirm this with certainty. This has led many to believe that Camelot was not a real place, but rather a symbol of a perfect society where power was used for the common good instead of personal ambition. The widespread influence of the King Arthur legend largely comes from medieval literary works. Writers such as Geoffrey of Monmouth expanded the story, adding magic, the character of Merlin, heroic knights, and royal tragedies. Over the centuries, Arthur gradually became the model of an ideal king, brave, just, loyal, and willing to sacrifice himself for the kingdom. These values resonate deeply with human aspirations, especially during times of social instability, when people seek a symbol in which to believe and place their hope. Even today, the image of King Arthur continues to live on in popular culture. From Hollywood films and novels to comic books and video games, the stories of Arthur, Excalibur, and Camelot are constantly retold in many different forms. This demonstrates that, whether he truly existed or not, King Arthur has transcended the boundaries of history to become a global cultural symbol. In the end, perhaps the question of whether King Arthur was real is less important than the reason why people have continued to tell this story for more than 1,000 years. Arthur represents the dream of an ideal leader and a just society, things that humanity has always longed for but rarely achieved. Standing at the fragile boundary between history and legend, King Arthur reminds us that sometimes the stories that may not be entirely true possess the greatest power. So, in your view, was King Arthur a forgotten historical figure, or simply the greatest legend ever told about England?